Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be going on a bit of a rant mode. What I mean by rant mode is that we're expanding on a previous video where I looked at my top 5 books of 2020, and now we're going to the other end of the scale where I'm looking at my bottom 5 books of 2020, and it's frustrating that some of these were not even on my reading list for 2020. I found them or rediscovered them and I thought, why not? Let's add it to the list because clearly there wasn't enough that I didn't get through. See, now the thing about this list is that it's a little bit different. It's not like the worst of the worst. I mean, some of them are, but there weren't many books that I genuinely didn't enjoy this year. There were very few that I was like, you know what, I'm done, I'm not finishing this, or good God, that was absolutely awful, why did I put myself through it? There weren't many like that, so this bottom 5 consists of ones that I didn't finish, ones that I did get frustrated at, or ones that just didn't live up to the expectation of when I first read them. So that's what we're going with. And I will differentiate between them as we go through. So let's get started. The first one is The Magicians. Originally, me and my husband started watching the TV series. We didn't know that it was a book series first. We started watching the TV series and we thought, okay, this is really bizarre and weird, but I kind of like it. Let's see where this goes. And then halfway through season 2, it just got so weird. I mean, it was a weird show anyway, but then it just went completely off the rails from there. We stopped watching about season 3, I think, and we have not gone back since. I did start reading this a couple of years ago when we first discovered that it was a book series. It was actually a gift. I've got the whole trilogy as a gift, and I got about halfway through, but I think my brain was so linked to the TV series and there were so many differences that my brain just wasn't allowing to accept this. So I was like, okay, I will put it on pause and I'll give it another go. A few years go by, goes completely out of my head, and I find it and pick it up again, and I've had that distance now. And it's still not good. God, the characters are so self-centered and whiny. The story is friggin' all over the place. The descriptions, I mean, you can have like 2 sentences describing a room and yet there is a 3-page description of an intimate scene between 2 characters when they're not even in a human form because of a spell, and I'm just like, clearly someone's priorities are all over the place. Just the entire thing was so tedious and none of the characters were likable, and any moment of humour or genuine magic and adventure that showed up was just brushed aside. I don't know. There was so much potential here and it was just such a letdown, and I did finish it, but I have no desire to read the 2nd or the 3rd books, and I feel really bad because they were originally a gift because this person realised I liked the TV series and thought I'd like the books as well, and I feel awful. So it was just a letdown all around, and the TV series was just a massive letdown as well, so The second one is on me. This is completely on me. I picked this up thinking that it looked very fun and quirky. This is The Grimm Legacy, but then as I started reading it I realised I am clearly not the target audience for this, so I bet that this is not a bad book. I just struggled to get through it because it was clearly aimed at like 10-year-olds. But it was not in a section for 10-year-olds when I picked it up. It was in adult fantasy. And I was like, okay, this sound, like even from the back, like saying about an unusual after-school job and that things might not be what they seem, that kind of thing. It did sound very young, but I was like, you know, it's in this section, I trust this place, so let's give it a go. And as soon as I started reading it, I realised it was very, very young, and it was very much like, oh my god, the cool guy from school has just walked in, OMG, and that sort of narrative attitude. I was like, oh, maybe 15 years ago I would have devoured this thing, but now I'm not so sure. And I couldn't do it. The character seems sweet, but she's very, very young, and that sort of struggle to compute in my head. I don't really have much to say about this. If you have younger children, then I'm sure this is going to be great for them, but I just couldn't get on with it. It just wasn't my age. So yeah. She says that she also enjoys other children's books like Magic Misfits and Cogheart series, but yeah, it was too young for me, and that was on me. I'm not saying it's a bad book, I'm just saying that that it's in my bottom 5 because I clearly did not do my research into it properly, and it was a letdown because of that, so that's why it's in my bottom 5. Number 3, I don't actually have a physical copy of, not because I lost it, unlike Good Omens, which I'm still mad about, by the way. I still haven't found it. But no, this one I read on my Kindle, which is why I don't have a physical copy of it. And that is the first of the Kane Chronicles series. It is a Rick Riordan book. It is based in the same world as the Percy Jackson series. This time we're focusing on Egyptian gods and Egyptian demigods, that kind of thing, and magicians passed down from ancient Egypt into modern day kids. And this one was not a bad book. The only reason, once again, similar to this one, the only reason why it is in my bottom 5 was because I already had such a high expectation of it. I'd just finished reading the Magnus Chase series, where the characters are a lot older, there's a lot more death and threat, and the world building is just so massive, and the characters were so diverse and creative. I mean, Alex Fierro is a fantastic individual, and they are just wonderful all around. So I went in with very high expectations. And then I start reading, and it's still a good book. It is still a good story. The characters are still fun for the most part, the background characters especially. But because the characters are so young, I mean, it's kind of like going back and reading the first Harry Potter book or the first Percy Jackson when they're like 11, 12 years old, and it reads across like clearly for 11, 12-year-olds. So as an older person then reading, you kind of struggle to relate to them, so it kind of sets you apart from the story. So it's still a great trilogy, although Sadie Kane, oh my girl, I have so many issues with you. So many issues, you little brat. It was just very hard to get into because I already had such a high expectation, and when you do jump from amazing ones like the Heroes of Olympus series and the Magnus Chase series, and then have to revert back down in age and priorities to such a younger group where they're clearly not as focused about what's going on around them, and everything is like, oh my god, this cute boy likes me, you're a little bit like, okay. Sadie Kane, you needed so much work. But again, not a bad book. It is only in my bottom 5 because it just did not live up to my own expectations. So that's those two out the way. So the first Kane Chronicles book and this one are not bad books by any means. They're just in my bottom 5 because they were clearly not aimed for me as a target audience. They were just clearly not aimed for me as a target audience, and that's not the book's fault at all, but that is why they're in my bottom 5. This one, on the other hand, number 4, the Hourglass Factory, it still has the bookmark in. I got a good almost halfway through, but nothing has happened. I had such high hopes for this one because it's got a cool time period, it's talking about the suffragettes, it's got a mystery, it's got some dark murder, it's got, you know, and it's just got all these things that should tick all the boxes for me. It's got, you know, female empowerment, it's got a mystery, it's got a murder, it's got, you know, an underdog trying to rise to the top. It's got all of these things in there, and yet I'm nearly halfway through the book and nothing has happened. Even the two main characters, who have met countless times, still are acting like they have not met once, and every time they do bump into each other it's like an inconvenience. And the mystery is happening. The mystery is happening all around them, and yet they're just not paying a blind bit of notice to it, and you're just getting so frustrated. And I get that some stories are slow burners, and that is fine. The way it is written, like the descriptions and everything, are amazing. I will give it that, but it just, nothing happens. It is, I don't want to say boring, but it was boring for me to read because I was just constantly waiting for the kick. And when you're like 240 pages in, I got 240 pages in and I'm still waiting. That's not a slow burn, that's just not knowing what to do, and it was frustrating. I could not get behind it and I just lost my patience with it, and I didn't actually finish it, which is annoying. And I still keep my bookmark in there because I'm convinced that I'm going to go back to it one day, and I might, but I just don't have that kind of time to waste. And with a baby on the way, I really don't think I'm going to have that time to waste in the future, so I'm sorry, Hourglass Factory, you just didn't hit the mark. You promised so much and you just didn't deliver. And finally, I did finish this one, and I got angry at this one, and the fact that I have the sequel downstairs in the garage that was ready to go just makes me even more angry, because now it is just clutter, because I will not be picking it up, and that is Angel Fall. I was so angry. It's like, it has the apocalypse style. It's trying to do a cool twist by saying that angels are actually the bad guys coming down to Earth and destroying everything because we're not worthy, rather than it's just a zombie apocalypse or, you know, government being a dick or something like that. It's like, no, they're bringing in a new creature, they're trying to explore new aspects, and it's when the main character's sister is kidnapped, the main character is able to capture one of the angels and force him to work with her to get her sister back, and it's like, yeah, okay, this sounds like it's going to be interesting. And it's really not. It is so dull, it is so boring, and it's like, the moment she captures this angel and she's describing his beauty, you instantly know where this is going to go. And they try and play it up like this epic rivals to romance, haters to lovers kind of story, but all they do is just physically and emotionally abuse each other throughout the whole thing, and then you're supposed to get on board with this romance that blossoms when really it is just the two of them on their own, and they're arguing and fighting, and it's just so uncomfortable to read. Every 5 minutes it's like, you're like, you know your sister is still missing, right? And she's like, but look at his abs. I'm like, I don't give a shit. The ending was just, it tried to do like this big epic twist of what was really going on, but it was dull, it was boring, and you're already so frustrated at the characters having no development, being so bland and one-dimensional that you genuinely don't care, and now you're expecting to go on to a sequel, and it's just gonna, you can already tell it's gonna be a waste of time, and I have no interest in it. I was expecting this high-end apocalypse adventure series, and yeah, if there was going to be a romance, then, you know, at least let it like bloom naturally or something like that, not just have characters literally beating the shit out of each other and yelling at each other and being like, oh well, you know, you're never going to get your sister back, and you know, my people are going to do this and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, but he's pretty, so I'm going to let it go. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. It was just, I hated it. I really did. And it takes a lot for me to say that I hated a book, but I hated the way those characters were written. I hated the way the story played out. I hated that there wasn't even much of a story there, and any threat just kind of went out the window. It was just a terrible book. So yeah, out of my bottom 5 books of 2020, only 3 of them I actually didn't like. Angel Fall, Hourglass Factory, and The Magicians were massive disappointments. They weren't written well, they were so slow or so ugly, and I just couldn't get behind any of them, and it was just a massive waste of time. Good God. Then The Grim Legacy and first Kane Chronicles were good books. They just weren't aimed for me. And that is the difference here. I enjoyed them, but they were made for me, so I didn't enjoy them as much as I could have. I hope that makes sense, because I want there to be a difference between bad books and books that just didn't relate to you. There is a difference between that. There are some good books out there, but you're not going to enjoy because it's just not your style, and that is a perfectly okay thing, and that is why they're in my bottom 5, not for any other reason. But those are the 3. They can burn. So that is all I have for you today. I am very curious to see what's going to happen this year with bad books. I hope I don't get my time wasted. I hope I don't even have to make this video next year, but we will see where the reading journey takes us. Did you have any bad books that you read? Did you have any books that weren't bad but you just didn't get on with them for whatever reason? Leave a comment below, I would love to hear it. And until the next video, I will see you soon. I hope you're staying safe. Goodbye, my scribblers.